Hey, I'm Coach Jay, and welcome to the Blue57 Scouting Report. I am joined with Lexus Ortiz in New York City. Hello, Lexus. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Coach Jay?
Doing good. We're coming up on the last 4 days before signing day, so I've seen a lot of stuff coming through our Twitter account with commits and decommits. Biggest news from this past week was University of South Carolina hired on Shane Beamer to be their next head coach. Young coach, coach that's never been a head coach before, and but the guy brings a whole lot of energy and positivity. And I think that they were really pushing him since he had coached there before. A lot of the kids that were there really wanted him to be there because they know him and they love him. But I'm interested to get your take on that hire.
I think they picked someone that was really well-rounded. He has significant experience in this field. Like you said, he previously coached there before in 2007 to 2010. Not only that, in 2009 through 2010, he was a recruiting coordinator, and he just came from being an assistant coach for offense for Oklahoma for the past like 3 seasons. So I just think he has a really good amount of experience, and his father is a Hall of Fame coach, Frank Beamer, which is amazing. So
Right.
I think they picked somebody that was really, really good.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the thing I like about Shane is I listened to his press conference when they announced that he was going to be the new head coach. What I really liked about him is he is very humble. He appreciates every single person along his journey that helped to get him there. He talked about every coach, his first coach, Sylvester Kroom. He talked about each coach along the way that taught him different things. He said that every time after a game when they won, his mom would say, "Congratulations on the win." She would leave that on his voicemail. And whenever they'd lose, she would say, "Hey, it's all right. Tomorrow's a new day. Just go back to work." And it's the little things like that it's good to get that kind of inside look about what's going on. He's transparent. He is willing to talk about his family, the things that he believes. That I think one of the biggest things that helped him to get that job was the players that he had coached there before. They loved him. They showed up for his announcement. They really worked hard to let the administration know this is a great coach. You got to go with this guy. And so I really like him. When I first heard about the hire, I was kind of like, I need to look into this a little bit more. The more that I hear him talk, the more that I like him. He's a
Mm.
guy that players will believe in, and he wants that job, not just for the money. He wants that job to represent the state. He wants that job to represent the people, to represent those kids. And he's totally bought in. And that's basically kind of what Dabo Swinney did up at Clemson. He wasn't a guy that had been a big time coach. And really, Dabo Swinney is more of a people person. He lets his coaches do their parts, but he created an environment that is such a good environment. So it'll be interesting to see what assistant coaches he gets. The names that he's brought out so far are some pretty good coaches that had a lot of success this past year. So I think that we'll hear about those new coaches. But overall, I think this is probably one of the best hires that they've had in a long time. And I think it's good to see. It's good to see young coaches that are honorable, humble, believe in the job, believe in the people. It's good just to see those kind of guys emerging because that's what our kids need.
I agree. It's definitely important to have someone on as a coach that's very positive. And like you mentioned, it was the players that really got him this position, which is important. That means that he had a huge impact on them. So the fact that he can build that connection with the players just shows that he can have a successful season because once your players believe in you, once they know they can come to you and you let off that positive energy, that's what they really need.
For sure, for sure. So yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that whole thing develops. But that's a pretty big turnaround. They
Mhm.
did not play very good. South Carolina did not play very good in their final game of the year. It looked like the players gave up. A lot of the players did not show up for the game. The players that were there were young freshmen. A lot of them were freshmen. So it was not a good way to end the year. So this guy has his work cut out for him. But, I think he's the guy to do it. I think he brings a lot of positivity. And, that's what's going to be required. They got a lot of work. So it'll be interesting to see how they do for the February signing. So they will probably retain around 10 guys for the commits, for the early commits on Wednesday, and then he'll come in and really work it hard for the February signing. But that's going to be interesting to watch, and we'll keep an eye on that.
He definitely just has to keep pushing and trying. It's starting from scratch now, but he's fully capable of doing it. And like you said, if there's people that can talk on his behalf, I'm pretty sure he'll get those commits.
Yeah, me too. Awesome. So what do you got on the list for today?
Well, today we're going to have Grant speak to us about recruiting.
Awesome.
Hey, Grant, how are you?
Hey, Alexis, I'm good. How are you?
Doing well.
Yeah, so to go in a little bit of what we've seen recruiting wise, I'll give you a little bit of background on my position. I serve as a scout and territory manager for the SEC conference, as well as just a scout, just basically seeing everything from our 9 states that we cover. These are players in these states that have received a Power 5 offer, whether it's 1 or 30. So it's a lot of different players that we're seeing from states like Florida, Georgia, both Carolinas, Virginia, Maryland, Alabama, Tennessee, and Texas. So lots of states that we're covering here. And I've got a bunch of decommitments and a couple offers too to go in if you're ready to hear it.
Yes, I am.
All right. So our first conference that we're going to be looking at is the SEC, and more specifically Tennessee, who offered Harrison Wallace, who's a 4-star receiver from Pike Road High School in Pike Road, Alabama. He actually, right after getting this offer, he decided to commit to Penn State the same day, actually, that he received his offer from Tennessee. So he decided to go a little bit further from home, ways away from Alabama with a blue blood team, although they're having both teams, Tennessee and Penn State, are having down years. He is joining a less crowded receiving corps with 3 other total receivers. That includes wide receivers and tight ends at Penn State, compared to 4 others that he would be with at Tennessee. Tennessee was also at 5 receivers the other day until tight end Hudson Wolf decided to decommit from the school and flip to Ole Miss. So that's a very interesting story there as well. And then Tennessee currently has 3 decommitments in under 10 days, or the past 10 days. So, however, they did gain a commitment at the offensive tackle position recently through Amari McNeil committing there. So stop me whenever you find something interesting, because I've got plenty of information for our other 4 conferences as well. So so go ahead.
Decommits are coming from the signing period that's approaching, and now a lot of these athletes are like, well, I really have to make a decision that's really beneficial to me, and the school that I committed to, I just don't see a future there.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the early signing day coming up in 4 days on the 16th, it's going to be pretty crazy, where we might see a lot of flips. We might see a couple last minute decommitments, and then a commitment on that day. A lot of people already have the 16th as their official commitment day. So they haven't named officially who they're signing to until that day. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens for a lot of these players, because we might still see a lot of shuffling around for these different conferences, different teams, and just overall lots of flips in the coming days. So for the ACC, we have Florida State decommitment with Malik Mclean, who's a 4-star wide receiver from IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. McLean was the number 36 wide receiver in the nation, and he's looking warm to Ole Miss, according to 24/7 Sports. So, excuse me, possibly another flip there to Ole Miss. So, Florida State, they've not had a winning season or a bowl win since 2017, and there's a lot of uncertainty with just their past coaching decisions as they continue on their pretty much disappointing season. Ole Miss has also not had a winning season since 2015 with Liberty coach Hugh Freeze, but by bringing in a veteran Power 5 coach with Lane Kiffin this year, in his historic winning percentage at a Power 5 level of 63.5%. Throughout his career, it really gives fans and recruits a lot more to be optimistic about than Florida State. So just keep an eye out for Florida State in their recruiting rankings. They're actually ranked 34th in the country, which is their lowest ranking since 24/7 Sports started keeping track in 1998. So it's really crazy just seeing how much it's really fell off this past year recruiting wise. So that'll be something to really keep an eye out for. In the Big Ten, we had a Nebraska decommit, Patrick Payton, who's a 4-star outside linebacker from Northwestern High School in Miami, Florida. He was originally Nebraska's second best commit in what was a very crowded linebacker room with 4 others committed in the 2021 class, including 13 outside linebackers currently in the program at Nebraska. Good news for Florida State because he actually committed 2 days later to there because they were in just desperate need for linebacker depth with only 1 other outside linebacker commit and 5 others projected total on the roster for next season. So this is a major gap that's getting filled for Florida State. They have more depth now. They also lost a 4-star Jacksonville area outside linebacker Brandon Jennings to Michigan a couple months ago once he flipped there. So overall, due to the amount of depth that Nebraska's defense has, they could afford to let Payton go, and Florida State should be very grateful to really have this replacement after losing Jennings a couple months ago. So very good pickup for Florida State in what's been a difficult recruiting season for them. And then in the Big 12, I have a Texas decommit, Michael Myslinski, who's a 3-star center from Bishop Kenny High School in Jacksonville, Florida. This guy is actually in my territory. I'm a territory manager for Jacksonville, so I just focus in and watch what these players are doing, whether they're visiting different areas, and just really getting a feel for what they are on and off the field. So Myslinski decommitted from a crowded Texas center room. So 2 others are projected to be on the roster next season, and both of them have at least 2 more years of eligibility remaining. So really the opportunity for playing time early on for Myslinski would be most likely very low. However, as soon as he decommitted, their projections came in for 24/7 Sports that he might flip to Michigan State. And Michigan State only has 1 other official center on their roster for next season. So it's very important that Myslinski might get early playing time in his career, serving a prominent backup role possibly his freshman year. So I would say because of that need for depth, plus the fact that I know that Michigan State was one of the schools he went out and visited over the summer, I think there's a really realistic chance that Michael Myslinski would end up in Michigan State and through flipping away from Texas. So I think it's a very viable and realistic destination for him. And then for the Pac-12, I've got our final decommit, who is Dominic Lavette. He decommitted from Arizona State. He's a 4-star receiver out of East St. Louis High School in Belleville, Illinois. I know this isn't one of the states we typically cover, but as someone who formerly played high school football in Illinois, I know that East St. Louis is the real deal. They put plenty of players into Power 5 conferences, and this one actually has a very interesting story to it. So with him, he shortly flipped to he flipped to Missouri shortly after his decommitment. And Arizona State is now only left with one receiver commit and the third fewest total commitments in the Pac-12 with 14 total. What makes this flip very interesting is another player, Tyler Macon, who is a top 15 dual threat quarterback in the country and is actually high school teammates with Lavette at East St. Louis. Tyler Macon is already committed and has been committed to Missouri for most of the year now. So really having that duo, that all-metro team from the St. Louis area, being able to come back together in forming one of the best high school tandems and possibly a better tandem at the next level. It will just be really interesting to see how this quarterback receiver duo plays out at the next level. And then that's all that I have from my roundup, but I'm very interested to see what questions you might have.
I think it's really interesting. A lot of these kids, decommit from these schools, right? Whether it's if the school's program is not having a good year, it's a down season for them, or a lot of positions are opening up, and it's really interesting. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what path these athletes decide. Do you want to go to a program that you're going to have a successful season where you might have to sit out the first few years, or do you want to go where there's a position open for you and you know that you're going to start, but you might not get those wins that you want?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that what we're seeing with Michael Myslinski and I think Patrick Payton and honestly even Dominic Lavette, those three guys could have very meaningful places in their programs from an early start. I know that Florida State has really dropped this year. It's well below what its lowest recruiting rankings have been in the past 20 years or so. But I think they have a good opportunity to turn it around, hopefully focus more so on getting those Florida recruits. University of Florida and Miami have just been really good at picking up those picking up those commits from their home state. So I would be very hopeful, very optimistic that Florida State will hopefully turn it around and get that figured out. Just hopefully, getting those players to stay home and then just having them have opportunities to succeed.
I definitely agree.
Grant, I think that's there's some real interesting stuff there. The Michael that plays at Bishop Kenny, he's a beast. His not sure what his dad's capacity is with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but I think he might be involved with the strength training or something like that. So they're a family that's been around this stuff. So I don't know what was going on in Texas at the time. They've kind of had a rough season. They're actually talking about that Urban Meyer might take that job. So I don't know what all happened there, but you're probably right. He got the too many guys at that same position. He started looking at playing time, and he's just like, hey, I want to play. The kid's a beast. I've seen him play. I've seen him up close. He's a big kid. His dad's a big guy too. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Brandon Jennings is another kid. I can promise you when he decommitted at Florida State, they had a pity party because that kid's a beast. He played on our 7-on-7 team. His dad played in the NFL. His dad's a big guy too. He's a grown man, and he's been a grown man for a while. He's a playmaker. That's one that Florida State should have gotten for sure. And he wanted to go there, but I think with all the dysfunction going on at Florida State, he's going somewhere else. So those are interesting. The third one was Ole Miss is a traditional school that they always get a lot of late commits. So I'm not going to reveal my belief about it, but there are always some weird things that happen with Ole Miss football in the last week of recruiting. And this has been going on for a long time. It was going on for Hugh Freeze. It was going on back in the day of Houston Nutt. But Ole Miss has a way of convincing top players to flip from their current school to Ole Miss. So we need to be keeping a good close eye on who flips to Ole Miss.
Yeah, and I think especially with Ole Miss, just having Lane Kiffin there, who just came from Florida Atlantic, had time at, I believe, USC and other schools as well before that, really bring that experience to the school, and possibly leading them to their first winning season in, oh geez, was it 5 years, I believe. I think that it's very, very optimistic for those recruiters from Ole Miss to really bring in some better talent this year and years going forward, as long as they hold on to Kiffin and some of those key assets that are leading them to this winning or possibly above 500 season.
Well, Lane Kiffin is an excellent coach. He's had some stuff, the stuff that happened at Tennessee, some of the stuff that happened at Southern Cal. He then went to Alabama. He has matured under Saban. I think he's gone through a lot of personal stuff as well. But when it comes down to coaching, he is a great coach. He's a great play caller. I mean, I think he put up 48 points on Alabama this year. So, you know, he is a great coach, and he'll get their players. Ole Miss goes after a lot of our kids down here in Florida. They go after Georgia really hard. They hit our Blue 57 footprint pretty hard. So they will get their players, and he'll put them to work. But you know, I was surprised that their numbers were lower, but they've kind of had a lot of commits and decommits along the way for the past month. So I think that in this last week, we're gonna see some guys flip to them, and that's also been the history for that school.
Yeah, so that'll be super interesting. And then also just seeing what the reaction will be over time from the hiring of Shane Beamer. I know you and Lexus discussed it earlier, but just seeing that flood of decommitments that came out the past few weeks. And then now that they've got their guy, it'll be just very interesting seeing that someone that has experience under as an assistant at Georgia and other schools, just really seeing if that can help translate over to South Carolina and really pick up some recruits for the future.
Yeah. So aren't we still looking at about per state? Aren't we looking at about for the 2021 class? Aren't we in the range of 15 to 20% of the kids have not committed yet?
Yeah, let me pull the numbers up. So for the 2021 class, we are still about between, so for the 2021 class, we have 773 commits out of 1,058 players. So 73.1% are committed. We're still, we've seen a lot of decommits this past few days, but I'm sure that it's going to bump up on the 16th with early signing day. A lot of people haven't announced. They've announced whether it's like their top 5, their top 8 schools, but when signing day hits, a lot of them are prepared to make that official commitment announcement and then sign. So I would expect it to be up closer to 80% in the coming weeks. And then as we get into, I believe, the final signing day is April 1st. So also seeing a spike as we get closer there as well.
So the February signing day will close out almost 99% of those D1 kids. So typically that April 1st is more for the NAIA D3 kids, but the majority of our D1 kids will all close out come February, for the February signing day. So I think you're right. I think we're at around 80% right now. That'll be that number will probably increase 5 or 10% over the next 3 days. Some guys like the drama of announcing on signing day, but we're still looking at 10% of guys with Power 5 offers are still available. So for these new coaches, that will give them an opportunity to hit some of those guys. So that's awesome. That's a great report. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Lexus, the thing that I think is a little bit different dynamic this year, and I wanted to kind of get your the psychological take on it, is, we've all been under COVID-19 or whatever this COVID thing's called now. We've been under this since, I guess, March 9th is officially when somewhere around that date was when they announced it. It was the TPC was taking place and they shut everything down. And I live right beside that, and they shut everything down. But, we've all been put in our caves and we've basically been on lockdown. We need some predictability. Humans crave predictability. Most likely, if my son were a senior in high school and it was down to like 3 or 4 choices, I would probably, as a parent, tell them, pick a school, let's move forward. I don't want to be dragging this thing out any longer because the entire year has been unpredictable, and I think I just want to pick a horse and go. What say you?
I would definitely weigh out all the options. I wouldn't be so quick to probably pick something. I know that we're in times of uncertainty right now, but at the end of the day, let's say a miracle happens and tomorrow everything goes back to normal. You want to make sure the kid pick somewhere that he's going to be happy, that he knows that program was the best fit for him. So yes, we can say, all right, let's go. You got a few days till signing period. Where are you leaning towards, just to see where his mind is and see like if he can really back up why he wants to go there. But I wouldn't force my child to pick something quickly, because at the end of the day, he needs to go somewhere where he wants to.
Yeah, no, I get that. But there's also something to be said to being decisive and just committing, because you could ponder this thing for another 6 months. And the reality is that at some point, they have been in communication with all these coaches for really at least 2 years. Most of these kids that we're working with, some of them been getting stuff for 3 years now. It's a long process. And so, they've had a chance to see how the season played out, if this coach is still going to be there, how the interactions of the personalities and all that stuff. And, I'm a person, I think that's just the difference between our personalities, is I'm a person that, like, let's look at the facts. These are the pluses, these are the minuses. Let's lay it down and let's make a decision, pray about it, and sleep on it for 24 hours, and then let's go with it. I come from that camp. And so, I like to be decisive about stuff, especially after I've had a lot of time to think about it and hear different people say things.
No, I agree, because sometimes if you sit there and you think about it for too long, you might second guess yourself and start questioning a lot of things. So I guess you got to find like a happy medium. Um, Making decisions too quickly is not always beneficial, but sometimes you just got to go with your gut, and it just depends on the situation.
Right. No, that's great. That's great. Awesome show this week. I appreciate everything that your input on everything. We got a busy at least 2 weeks ahead of us, with signing day coming up on Wednesday. It's going to be a lot of information coming through. We're going to be pushing out a lot of videos, trying to educate our audience on the things that are going on. Appreciate everything that you and Grant are doing to make this work.
Thank you for coming on. I really think that we got a lot of great insight from Grant, and I thank everybody for watching. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Blue57, and if you like what you see and want to keep up every week, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.